Hi, welcome to another episode on Cloud Code to create a dashboard for storytelling. So, last week I explored in another video how to create multiple agents in Cloud Code, which takes an intent to create a dashboard, what data elements are available, explore the plan, and then create a chart and then tell a story by writing a blog. So we created a dashboard for a market structure analysis in which we could deep dive into a specific industry and look at the top 20 or 25 companies in specific industry and understand their relative sizes in terms of market capitalization, in terms of sales and profits. And we can also calculate something called HHI index in each sector, which gives us insight into how competitive and how monopolistic that particular sector is. So this week we'll take that forward and use the same existing template for creating using multiple agents and create a new dashboard for peer comparison of companies. So we'll take a specific quarter performance of companies in specific industries. So we'll create a dashboard to choose an industry and take the top 20 or 25 companies and understand their performance, the relative performance, like how a company is performing with respect to other companies in that specific sector using different financial ratios. And here we're going to create different kinds of charts like outlier detection through box plots. We'll also look at different companies, how they're grouped based on their performance into different bins. We'll take a ratio and in which bin which companies lie. And what will also create something called quartile comparison, whether a particular company you can select a company in a specific sector and then look at if a particular company is in the top 25% or the bottom 25% or in the second or third quartile. So you can understand that overall how the particular sector is performing in terms of a ratio and where these companies lie in with respect to other companies, which I call peer comparison. And we'll be using Claude Code to create this complete dashboard from the intent. And of course, we're going to provide the data. So it's going to explore the data, understand the data is available, understand the intent, and going to create a dashboard for us. But first, I will show the dashboard. And why once we look at dashboard, what it has created, then I'll take you through the Claude Code and set up and show you the different agents created. It's very similar to the one that we have seen the last week. If you have not seen that video, please look at that video before you come here, or after watching this video you can also look at that particular video. So I'll show you how the agents are created and then through a Claude Code command how I actually orchestrated those agents to create the dashboard from intent end to end. So let's first look at the dashboard. This is the dashboard that's created by the agents. This is called market peer comparison dashboard. So you can select the specific industry here. Currently it's configured only for 6 industry sectors, and you can actually select a specific sector, and in that sector depends on what data is available in the data sets. It has selected 28 companies and about 7 ratios. And there are 2 main chart windows or tabs are there. One is the distribution of those ratios among those 28 companies and the quartile heat map. First, let's look at the ratio distribution in which we can actually select this one of the 7 ratios that's configured. For example, price to earning ratio, return on equity to G factor, and Pietrowski score. And given a particular ratio distribution, it can actually show the distribution either in terms of histogram or box plot. So for example, in the banking, if you see, this is the distribution of price to earnings ratio, where it also shows the bins. For example, which are the companies whose PE ratio is from 0 to 10, 10 to 15, and so on and so forth. And you can see the mean is about 16.59 in this particular banking industry, and it's a little bit of skewed to the right. And you can also look at the box plot, and which also shows the outliers. For example, here are the two banks whose price to earning ratio is quite high compared to the peers. So two outliers detected. So if you also not aware of these ratios, you can select a particular ratio. For example, price to earning ratio, and then there is a info tooltip here. You can select. It pops up um, a documentation, a note on that particular ratio. So measures the relations between companies' stock price and earnings per share, gives a formula, and also shows how to interpret. Typically, higher PE means the investors expecting higher future growth, and lower PE indicate undervaluation or lower growth expectations. Similarly, you can select any of these particular ratios. For example, let's select Petrosky score, and you can see a little bit of skewness to the left. And what is a Petrosky score? It's actually a combination of 9 different signals, right? From profitability to leverage, liquidity, efficiency, and all that. It actually gives a score between 0 to 9. The higher score indicates strong fundamental and financial health, often used to find high quality value stocks. And you can also look at the box plot. There are not any outliers in this specific industry, at least among these 28 companies, peers in that specific industry. So let's look at one more sector, let's say consumer durables, and let's look at price to earning ratio. No outliers again, and the histogram looks very nice, normal distribution like a bell curve, and most are around the mean. The mean is about 62.40, which is quite high actually. So that's a very interesting. You can simply select an industry and look at a different ratios distribution, and you get a quick glance into how the peers are performing in this particular industry. So now let's look at a quartile heat map. The quartile heat map gives the comparison in terms of in which quartile a particular company lies in terms of its performance in comparison to its peers. For example, if you look at the quartile map, what is showing is so these are the ratios, the 7 ratios that we are considering for this particular dashboard, and these are the quartiles. This is the first quartile, second, third, and fourth. For example, here, let's say in IT software, we have 18 companies, and 1/4 of them, about 4 to 5 companies, the top, right, in terms of that particular ratio. Whether it's good or bad, that has to be understood from the perspective of the ratio itself. But in terms of the number in that particular ratio, the value of that particular ratio, the top 4 or 5 companies has about 40 to 55 in price to earning ratio, and the bottom is 18.5 to 24.2, and then the second and third quartile, and then return equity and so on and so forth. But what actually shows a very interesting insight is that I wanted to build for a long time, and could not build in any other platform, so I used Claude Code to do it, and very happy with its creation of this particular chart. For example, I take a particular company, let's say, Hexavar Technologies, right? So here, if you select a particular company, it highlights in which quartile actually it falls. So in terms of price to earning ratio, it's in the third quartile. So its value is about 31.69 price to earnings ratio. This is actually taken in the last quarter's performance. Whereas return on equity, again, third quartile. Quick ratio is 0.9 to 1.7, and then Petrosky score is about 4 to 4. I think about 4 or 5 companies have very similar score, but there are also few companies which are have a score of 7.0 to 9.0, and then the G factor is a little high, the growth factor. So let's look at some other industry. Let's say consumer durables and let's say Blue Star. Okay. Again, it shows where exactly it lies. So quite high P ratio, right? Petrovsky score is about 6.0 to 7 is 7, and G factor 2 to 3. Let's look at something else. Yeah. So you can actually select a particular company and understand its performance in terms of ratios in comparison to its peers, where exactly it lies. So now let's look at the structure of the Claude Code project, which actually created this dashboard. So it contains uh, under the .Claude folder the definition of the agents and the commands which orchestrated those agents to create those charts in the dashboard. And then the input was the data sets, and each data file contains the set of companies in that specific industry and the ratios which are actually input to the project. And then there is a configuration file which tells which ratios to consider for the chart. So it's a configurable. So tomorrow, if you want to add one more ratio, you can simply configure it and make those ratios available in the data. And then specific industry name and the corresponding industry data sets are available in particular CSV files. So if you, let's say, go to automobiles.ratios hyphen ratios, so these are the companies in that particular sector along with the ratios. So the industry, the companies in the industry, and the ratios to consider for the chart is all configurable. They're not hard coded into the dashboard. Now, there are two agents that's created, which is similar to the ones that we did earlier for the market structure analysis. There are two agents, which is explore, plan, and create charts. So explore plan is the definition of the agent. Objective is to you are the explore plan agent responsible for understanding the analytics question, creating detailed execution plan, and preparing data for insights. Right. So it transforms vague and specific questions into structured analysis plan, explore the data sets, identify the required data elements, create focused data subsets if required, of course. The data elements are not available or it has to be computed or imputed, then it actually creates a new subset. Otherwise, it takes the data set as it is. Verify data sufficiency for generating meaningful insights, and also provide Python scripts so that can be used to create new data subsets in the future. So from the raw data set to create the subsets, which is directly consumed by the dashboard, if it does any of this transformation of the data elements or imputation, it also will provide a script so that you can add new data sets like a new industry, a new ratios in future, which can be configurable in the data in the dashboards. Then the location of the input data and the workflow, what the agent will do, question understanding, data exploration, element identification, subset creation if it's required, sufficiency verification, plan documentation. So ultimately, once it explores the data based on the intent of the dashboard creation is provided, and it's going to create a detailed plan of that particular chart. And then, of course, create chart. So you are the create chart agent, a D3 JS visualization specialist. So I have specified which particular framework to use. You transform prepared data sets, which primarily comes from the previous explore plan agent, into beautiful interactive charts with proper code organization and comprehensive documentation. So your role and then your workflow, review the plan, chart design. It also provided a file structure for each of the chart so that it follows that particular specific chapter, which of course I can configure into a um, or an embed into a particular blog or a website, and then a little bit of best practices, the code quality, the visualization design, right, file organization, interactive accessibility, and so on. So the very standard set of instructions for creating dashboards or charts. And then finally a command which is called market ratios MD, which binds them together. So which builds an interactive dashboard to analyze company. So this is where the specific of the dashboard is mentioned within the selected industries, and ensure the dashboard is fully configurable. So updates to industry configuration and automatically reflect in the industry list, associate data files, company names, and ratio selections. I've also given a filter that consider only companies with a market cap is more than 10,000. This is in Indian market, so it's 10,000 crores. And then your task is to build an interactive dashboard. And here the specifics of the dashboard is given. So this should be an industry selector, 2 tab interfaces, ratio distribution and quartile heat map, and additional implements like tool tips, definitions, and summary footer, and all those things. So now this particular command will take help of the other agents that's available and accomplish the task. And it actually created inside this out folder, you can see it created those charts, quartile heat map, ratio distribution, right, and the main file index.html. And to run the command market ratio, because market ratio is added as a command, you can simply say market ratio, and it directly creates the dashboard. Again, like last time I told you, not a complete dashboard is created in a single go, but probably 85 to 90% were completely done. And then I had to do a couple of fixes and iterations to arrive at the dashboard that we are already seeing. So I'm going to post the link to the dashboard also in the description. You can explore it. And thank you for watching the video. I will again post another video later about how to use Claude Code for other tasks.